All right, there you go.
All right. You can begin whenever you'd like.
Sure, thanks, Mason. So I'll just do a short little intro. So my name is Philip DiGaspero. I graduated from Mizzou in 2018. When I was a student, I went on the South Africa trip, which was led by a man named Ron Cott at the time. He has since kind of decided that he is like the trip's a little bit tough on him, so he's passed it on to me, and so I've been taking students down there for the past 4 years, I guess. Um, it's a fun trip. You learn a lot. It's definitely like South Africa's got its pros and its cons and its challenges, so it's not just like a relax on the beach type vacation, but it's definitely a really fulfilling experience. And I have yet to have anybody who's gone tell me that they wish they wouldn't have. And I mean, I know that when I went as a student, I loved it, which is why I'm still doing it now. So I have just kind of a quick presentation to give you guys. I'll kind of run you through like what the trip is about, why we do the trip, some of the logistics of the trip, and then I will open it up for questions at the end. And I am happy to spend as much or as little time as you guys want on it. So I'm gonna try to share my screen now. And I think Mason, you're gonna have to approve me to share the. Okay, cool. I think you guys should see what I'm seeing. Is that correct?
Yep, we were good.
Okay, cool. Uh, I don't know. Can you see the little zoom icon in the corner? Like where I can see your guys' faces or no?
No, we're all good.
Okay, cool. So, South Africa vet trip, we're looking at probably June 13th to the 30th, or sorry, July 13th to the 30th of this year. The start date is, or the departure date's pretty firm. The departure to South Africa date, and then the return date is flexible by a day or so. We're still waiting to hear back from one of the outfitters to see if they can keep us on for an extra day. So this is the group from just this past year with our rhinoceros. That's me in the background. That's Andy Frazier, who's the vet that you guys had that meeting with, and then all the students. So it takes place in a little town called Tabazimbi, South Africa, and we go to a place specifically called Buffalo Creek Game Ranch. So this big man here, his name is Hannes Pretorius. His family owns the game ranch that we do a lot of our work on, and a few years ago they decided to build like a lodge camp kind of style for us. And like we're really just about the only people who use it. Like they have a few people who come in like year to year who use it, but we are like the main bulk of um, the guests who get to go there. It's really nice. Everybody stays in tents. When I say tents, it's not like what you think of if you've gone backpacking or anything like that. These are like big canvas walled tents. They've got a concrete floor. You have a bathroom with plumbing attached to the tent. They've got heaters and air conditioners inside, and they've got electricity. So we typically will stay about 4 people to a tent, and they're really very comfortable overall. And then they kind of branch off via walkways from a central lodge that has, a couch, it's got a TV, it's got refrigerators, it's got a full kitchen, and that's where we'll do like most of our meals. But then when we come back at the end of the day, everybody gets to go off to their, tent or what have you. And so, everybody, barring power outages or other issues, like can take a shower every day. Like you'll stay clean, you'll stay comfortable. This is not like it's glamping on a different level. Like you're really very comfortable on this sort of a trip as far as your accommodations go. So that's where we go. That's where we stay. We fly into Johannesburg, and then it's about a 4-hour drive away from there. You can last slide that the game drive vehicles that we kind of drive around in. Can you guys see my mouse when I move it around? Or no,
Yeah, we can.
Mason? Okay, cool. So they're like canvas covered, and then there's rows of seating, and then you can actually see right here. This is where a buffalo hooked it and tried to cause some damage to the vehicle. So it gets a little bit interesting sometimes, but they're fun vehicles. It's all open air. This is our guide Ryan. He's always there with us. He's a hunting guide, but he also has extensive field knowledge for birds and tracking and all sorts of wildlife. He's actually got like pretty high level credentials that very few guides in the country do have. So he's a great time to have. He's a lot of fun. Um, this is all made possible because of wildlife rights. So my background prior to vet school was fisheries and wildlife at Mizzou, actually, and so the United States has a mentality about wildlife where we view wildlife as a public trust, right? So when you have a white-tailed deer that's in your backyard, even though it's on your property, it still belongs to all of us, right? It belongs and is regulated. It belongs to and is regulated by the state. So you can't just go out there and do whatever you want to that deer, right? South Africa had this similar system, and they realized that all of their animals were getting decimated, right? People were subsistence living, they didn't have, two pennies to rub together. So if they saw something in their backyard, they were going to shoot it, they were going to kill it, they were going to eat it. As a consequence of that and habitat destruction and all the other things that we fight about with conservation, they decided to kind of change things up and they legalized private ownership of wildlife. So in South Africa now, if you have X amount of acres and you have X amount of like high level fence, those animals that are within your property are actually your property. Okay, so like you can own an elephant, you can own a rhinoceros, you can own a sable antelope, which is what this is on the screen here. Okay. Because you can do that, you've added economic value to those animals, right? If I have a deer that's in my backyard and it's limping, I'm going to think, oh, poor deer, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to call a local vet to come and dart the deer, which they couldn't do anyway, and fix it. But if this is your animal that's worth, $2,000 or $40,000, you're definitely going to then do something about that. So this has really saved a lot of wildlife because now people have a vested interest in the survival of those species. And so you have a lot of these people who will set up for ecotourism. So people who just want to come in and they want to, look at birds and rhinos and elephants and all that sort of stuff and spend their money that way. You have people who also want to hunt them. And so they'll come in and they'll pay big bucks to come down and stay at a lodge and shoot an animal, which sounds a little bit unethical, but realistically, it has made these animals' populations explode because there's that economic value tied to them. And I don't know if Andy covered it in his presentation, but like the economic impact of hunting in South Africa outweighs the economic impact of everything else. And I think all the vets over there, Andy included, like would wish at some point that the phototourism and the ecotourism would become an overwhelming economic influence, and then we don't have as much hunting. But right now, the reality is that hunting is what fuels that conservation. So you'll get some places like Buffalo Creek that they do host hunting, but they are also farming these animals. Okay. And these are not docile animals. You can't go up and pet them. They are still wildlife. But, they may have a sable antelope herd that's in a, 200-acre um, camp, is what they call them, or boma is the African word for it. And so those animals get to stay in there and they breed, and then they can selectively kind of pick genetics to add or take away from the group to proliferate those genetic lines and maintain species diversity and all that sort of stuff. So all of that comes back to the fact that these people can own these animals. And because of that, the animals can flourish, but they can also afford vet care, which is how we come into the program, right? Without them owning those animals, there wouldn't be anybody who wants to pay for, a lame antelope. So like I said, there are different levels of like acreage and fencing that you have to have in order to like own these different animals. But this is a list of all the animals that we've worked with previously. And I updated it last night for some of the other things that we've used, but we almost and like kind of got to work with honey badgers last year, which was kind of cool. They trapped some and we got to like they let them out of the cage, but we still got to see them up close. But Hannes's place, they raise sable antelope, impala. They raise really, really big Cape buffalo. They actually have like the most expensive Cape buffalo in the world on their place. It was sold at auction for like $11.5 million several years ago. And it's like partially owned by the president of the country. That's kind of cool. But then they have oryx and eland and roan. He doesn't have rhinoceros, but we always go out to a big national park and work on rhinos. Same with lions. Cheetah is hit or miss. Andy does some really cool work with cheetahs, trying to reintroduce them to other countries, including India and Mozambique. Hannes has some giraffe that we've worked on before. He's got wildebeest, wild dogs we may or may not do on national parks. He's got Ankoli cattle, which are a pretty cool species of cattle if you guys haven't ever seen those. We've got some Boer goats, which are really just pets, but we've the past couple of years done castrations or what's it called when they tie off the vas deferens? You guys know what I mean. They have made them unable to reproduce, and then we've worked on waterbuck and bushbuck in the past couple of years. The trip lets you get a lot of hands-on training, and what I think is really cool from a timing perspective for you guys is that it comes between like when you're right about to get into clinics, right? So I don't know about you guys, but when I was in vet school, like you get to that end of didactic worn out, right? Like you're ground down. It's like, man, I am tired of getting these grades that I'm not wanting to, and life has just been really hard. It's all been book knowledge. When you go on this trip, it's super low pressure. Like you have to like pay attention and do what you have to do, but like I'm not grading you on a scale of A's, B's, and C's, right? This is just a chance to get hands-on training, hands-on experience. You can kind of like work with the knowledge that you've had so far, and you can develop some of that confidence that you want to have before you get into clinics. So everybody who's done it really, I mean, I think they've found that it has been really nice to kind of get that refreshing boost of this is why I'm in this field. This is the stuff that I want to do. And so on the trip, you get to practice blood draws. You're going to do a lot of vaccinations. You're going to do a lot of intramuscular injections of different supplements and vitamins. You do get to work with the dart gun. Everything that we work with has to be anesthetized because they are wild animals. And so there's lots and lots of dart gun work. Um, in South Africa, the veterinarians have to be the one that use the dart gun for like anesthetics, but you guys get to vaccinate things through the dart gun, so that's still pretty cool and the same skill set. You'll do ear tagging. You may or may not participate in surgery to some degree. You'll do parasite treatments. There's lots and lots of animal handling. We've done reproductive evaluations before, whether that's scanning for pregnancy with an ultrasound or doing semen collection and semen evaluation. Like that's something you get to do. Necropsies are very variable, based on, of course, what does or does not die while we're there. We don't hope for them, but if we do get them, it's pretty interesting. One year we did a kudu and then a sable antelope, and then, of course, wound treatment. You know, these animals, they are wild, they will fight with each other, they get injured, so there are wounds, there are abscesses. One year we found a sable that we thought had an abscess. It turned out to be like a big encysted tapeworm. So it was like one of those hydatid cyst things that you hear about. So some of those things that you caught in like parasitology and stuff, um, you actually will see them out in the real world because it's different out there. So it's pretty cool. These are just some pictures of the different things that you'll get to do. You know, she's doing a rectal exam on an oryx. This is a semen evaluation. This, of course, is IV, probably a reversal agent for that animal. And then there's monitoring with the pulse ox on a wild dog there. Last year, towards the end of the trip, they got to work with young wildebeest. These are called King's wildebeest, which is just a designation of the color on them. But I think the group at that point was a pretty well-oiled machine, and they did something like 65 of them in an afternoon, which is like you're cooking at that point because they've all got to be anesthetized, and you've got to do everything. You got to wake them up. You got to get all your paperwork. You can see Hannes up here in the corner. He's making sure he's recording everything because anytime that they get these animals down, they want to record as much data as they possibly can. We do get the dark gun work, like I said. We get a dedicated morning of training. You can see Maria here, who's one of the vets, working to just kind of teach the students, hey, this is how you use the dark guns. And then you get a couple of chances to go out and vaccinate roan antelope, like from the back of a truck. And then a big part of the trip that everybody has loved is that we typically go up in a helicopter and we try to vaccinate giraffe from there. You would think that it'd be easy to find giraffe from the air. It is not. Um, we have had a couple of years that they've gotten to vaccinate some giraffe, but like there have been years that we have found zero giraffe at all. In which case, then we switch over to different animals like buffalo or antelope, or one girl shot a warthog one time. So you just kind of take what you get, and you're doing like a botulism and an anthrax vaccine. So none of those animals are going to suffer from that. But the giraffe can suffer without the vaccine, so they really do try to get that done every year. And you can see out of the back of the truck, you're going for Roan at that point. And then there's the helicopter. And then this is just a wild dog that we got to work with. And you can see that was that group from a couple of years ago. And I think that at this point, I'm basically just into pictures of different wildlife that we work with. For fun, we do get to go on the weekends to some game drives at some national parks. That's like your true safari experience. You get to go out on these vehicles. I think these guys will drive you around. You kind of tell them, hey, this is what we want to see. They will try to find those animals. Of course, they can't guarantee you that they're going to find them, but we have seen the entirety of like we've seen everything that we wanted to see. I mean, we've seen leopards, cheetah, lions, hyena, rhinoceros, elephant. You can see all sorts of cool stuff. As you can tell, and maybe surprising to some of you guys, like everybody's in cold weather gear. It is during the summer, but they're in a different hemisphere, so it's winter for them. So it is colder down there, and especially in those mornings when you're on that game vehicle and you're not moving around, it can get pretty chilly. So part of the reason that we do this trip is that we can get preceptorship hours for them. The Missouri, for those of you who don't know, in order to get your Missouri license, you do need preceptorship hours. I think it's something like 320. It may be a little bit more. The Missouri board has previously approved this trip for 80 hours. They will typically assess that at their first meeting in January, so I can't promise you that you'll get your preceptor hours, but they haven't ever said no before, and I don't know why they would say no now. So that's why I come on the trip. I supervise you guys. I'm basically there to keep you guys safe and help to teach you stuff. I'm, of course, not a wildlife veterinarian. I'm a small animal GP out of Kansas City. I don't see a lot of lions where I am. Um, so, but I can supervise you guys and say, okay, yes, these guys did this. They did this appropriately. Here, we can count these hours towards their license. So that's kind of the justification for it. Trip cost, which I'm sure is big on everybody's mind. I looked up the information from last year. Last year's trip was just about 5,700 per student, and then airfare. Airfare was expensive last year. It was like almost 2,800 bucks a person, like especially after I'm sure it was. So it was not the cheapest thing, but we also only had 10 students go last year. So the cost of that trip, like there's a certain amount of overhead, and then there's of course like your expendables like food and stuff like that. The overhead stays the same. So if there's 15 people, the price goes down. If there's 10 people, the price goes up. So typically what happens is they will give us a like a range of prices at X, Y, and Z student numbers, and then we just figure out where we land as far as students, and then we try to look at pricing from there. So you will have some expense as far as vaccinations and medications prior to the trip. Vaccinations aren't typically excessive. You don't need the yellow fever vaccine, but you do need typhoid. You need your hepatitis, like most of those things that you probably already have to go to school. But typhoid is one that people don't usually have. And then as far as medication, I typically recommend that everybody take something for like traveler's diarrhea. And then I have recommended doxycycline in the past because you can get some tick-borne illnesses over there that can get you pretty sick. And I've seen the doxycycline turn that around for people pretty quickly. This is just a Cape Buffalo. Again, there's harness, and you can see, how many people it takes to keep that thing upright, how big those horns are. And so, as far as animal handling goes, there's a lot of physical movement and activity on the trip. That's another rectal pregnancy evaluation. You can see that Sarah's got the like ultrasound goggles on in front of her. So that's the same concepts and the same work as you would do in like a big feedlot or dairy barn type situation. But of course, you're working on a different animal here. This is a this is a rhinoceros. And so, this is anesthetic monitoring with respirations on the nose. We're drawing blood from the ears. It's not very many animals and small animal, at least that you can sit on their shoulder and just kind of rest there. But on these guys, you can. It's just a different world. And just a big Cape Buffalo rhinos. You can see mom is over there. There's the baby laid over on its side. Andy's over there about to reverse it. And like that rhino is very clearly drugged. Like I can see that by now because I've done this for long enough. But it's just neat out there. It's just super, super cool. And it's a totally different world. There's a black impala that Hannes has on his property, another rhino and a baby, calf, I suppose I should say, some wild dogs that we got to see once upon a time, an elephant. That's a roan antelope. That's what you guys will get to vaccinate. And more elephants. Like you really get to get very close to them on the game drives. And then these are just group photos from the past several years. So this was a super, super cool trip. We got to do like 17 rhinoceros, I think, which was a ton. and then this is the subsequent trip, and that's Maria. I don't know if Andy introduced her to you, but Maria's his girlfriend. She's from Portugal. She's also a veterinarian, so she's like his associate vet. And for whatever reason, both of these groups decided that that was the picture they wanted to take without knowing that the other was taking the picture. So that seems to be like standard for the groups. And then this is this past year with a big kudu bull. And then that was just a really cute lion cub we saw once upon a time. So um, that's what I've got for you guys. I know that's kind of like a pretty big overview. So I'm gonna, I think, stop screen sharing so that I can see all you guys again. And then I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have for me or expand on anything. I know that was kind of a pretty high level overview. I just don't know how detailed you guys want me to get. So feel free to fire away.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. The first question that I have at least is when, I guess, should we all as like a class or as like the group that's interested in going decide on when we like confirm that we are going for price wise?
For sure. So, what I would like you guys to do is take the month of December to think about it. I know you guys get a winter break. I'd really like to have some pretty firm commitments by the time you get back from winter break. Last year, it got pushed out a little ways past that, and that led us to get our flights relatively late, and I think that's why they were as expensive as they were. I'll actually look them up right now and just see what they are. Um, because it definitely gets more expensive as the year goes on.
Hmm.
Um,
As it goes out for or for flights wise, we all obviously take the same flight.
correct.
Some of the people have like mileage or like certain like points for
Yes.
certain flights wise. Because I know that was a question
So,
somebody asked me at some point, and I just
yep. So it's a good question. So we'll all fly out together and we typically fly Delta. But it does depend a little bit on like what's the better price. But Delta has a flight that we'll leave from Kansas City. It'll go from Kansas City to Atlanta and then straight to Johannesburg. So that flight is like 15 hours, but then it's just straight. And so it's really very straightforward. I don't want to leave from different cities because inevitably somebody's flight is going to get delayed. They're going to miss the Johannesburg flight, and then that is just an absolute nightmare. So we'll all leave together. When we come, and if you want to use points to pay for that, like that's totally fine. We use a booking agent and she can like get that however. On the way back, we'll all fly. Well, actually, you can split up wherever you want, right? Like, we'll all drive back to Johannesburg together. But once we're at the Joburg airport, like, if you want to go somewhere else, you can. Like, one year we had one girl who went to Thailand, another went to London. If you want to all fly back to the States and then fly to your respective home cities, that's totally fine too. It doesn't matter to me once we're departing. It's just on the way there, we all have to be together. Um, so I think that answers your question, right, Mason?
yes, perfect.
Cool. So looking right now, if we departed July 13th and what I said the 30th, and we flew back on the 30th, um, I don't know if it's going to be out that far actually. Let's see. Yeah, so like right now, those flights are like the Delta one is like 2 grand, right? So it's 750 bucks less than last year, which is pretty darn good. So I do want us to try to get that stuff figured out shortly, um, just to save you guys some money on that. So if we can all kind of have a good idea come like January 2nd or so, that'll be super helpful for me because then I can get them working on stuff in South Africa. And at that point, it's not like you don't have to say, hey, I'm 100% going. I just really want to know, are we looking at like 10 students with a lot of interest or 16 students with a lot of interest? Because then we can finalize that price. Until we tell you guys like specifically, hey, this is the price, like you're not locked into anything. It's just more of a way for us to figure out what can we offer you.
All right. And then I know every year they do like some sort of fundraiser. And from what I've been told in the past, the fundraiser is to pay for like the extra excursions as well as like, the tips and stuff like that. Is there
Yep.
any specific like fundraising that we do that could help lower the price for the students to go? Or is that more so if we decide to try to do more fundraising wise?
It's if you guys decide. So, the fundraising historically has been like when I was a student, we fundraised and we raised, I would say maybe 500 bucks. And we use that to like tip guides and tip the camp staff and stuff like that. And that was my expectation. And then a couple of years ago, one of the groups raised like 2 grand, 2,500 bucks or something like that. And so, they were able to tip everybody out, but then they also each got, 100 bucks at the end of the trip that they could, use to buy stuff, or they could just pay for their trip with it. So if you guys are like gung-ho fundraisers and you want to try to fundraise most of the trip costs, I'm totally cool with that. But that is like firmly within your group's decision-making process to say, hey, this is what we have. Um, I do typically ask for like 3 people to kind of take leadership roles. We call them the tri-chairs. One of them tends to head the fundraising. Looks like the Allisons say we can fundraise. One of them heads up fundraising. One of them helps me to coordinate stuff, and then one of them kind of manages like medical aspects of things, which can help you guys out quite a bit. And so if we have, let's say, 20 people and we can't take all 20, then like those 3 people who volunteer for leadership positions, like they get a guaranteed spot. And then we'll draw names out of a hat or whatever it is that we have to do. However, the past few years, it's kind of been like, okay, well, maybe there's 15 people who want to go, in which case everybody gets to go. And then the tri chairs, it's just something you get to put on your resume and help me out quite a bit. So, and I guess a little bit, yeah. Medical, like somebody to help coordinate, like vaccine clinic, or because it's kind of tough to go out there and be like, okay, well, what do I need, right? So, um, guidance as far as what medications do you need. Oh, I forgot to mention anti-malarials. I typically take those. You probably don't truly need them, but that's going to be up to your doctor. And so, Mizzou Health has previously been like, okay, well, we can kind of like set up, hey, let's all go get our vaccines there, and then the doctor knows exactly what's going on, that sort of stuff. Um, and then as far as like personal medications and stuff, typically instead of everybody bringing a bottle of Advil, we have like, okay, Mason will bring a bottle of Advil and Emily will bring a bottle of Benadryl, and that person coordinates like what medications we're going to bring.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If we were wanting to do something different with our returning flights, would we have to individually do that, like through the like travel agent that we work with?
No, if you wanted to just do that on your own, I think you could. That'd be fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, she could help you with it if you want, but like if you're totally happy just to set up your own thing, you're more than welcome to. There's no problem with that. And honestly, I haven't really decided yet. I don't know, like the travel agent we had 2 years ago was not at all helpful. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have heard, but we got stuck with the CrowdStrike glitch, if that rings a bell to any of you guys a couple of years ago. Like we were supposed to leave for South Africa on that day. And so we got stuck at the airport for like 7 hours, and then we had to push the trip back by 5 days. That travel agent was like useless. The one that we got last year was like slightly better. We may or I don't know. I may decide not to use a travel agent to like book the departure flights this year. We'll see. Who else has questions?
I,
Yeah,
I could I could give another one a roll.
sure.
How many? Because I know you just said if we had 20 students, we like cut it. Is there like a cap for how many students we take usually? Because it seemed like
So
you
I
had
think
like some idea of like where you draw the line at.
yeah, so 16 is what the tent camp like can currently accommodate. Because there's like 4 student tents. I'm probably going to bring another veterinarian with me this year in addition to myself. So if there were like 12 of you, that person may have a tent to themselves, but there are also some little, they call them chalets, but there's like little houses on the property too that like we could push to if we have to. So 16 is probably top end. Um, Anything less than that, and people start to have a little bit of space in their tents, which is fine. It just is more expensive.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I,
Nobody else has any questions.
I guess the only other question is when we should plan to have, like, I don't know how often we should have meetings about the trip
Yep.
or
Yep.
like that, but I guess I could always contact you unless you like had an idea of when we should. generally
I
think about having our second meeting about it. So like,
yeah,
I mean, I'm
so I
guessing
would
after Thanksgiving break or Thanksgiving Christmas break would make sense.
Yeah, I would say like shortly after Christmas break. I kind of the way that I kind of try to structure these things is like this is a very like high overview, just like, hey, this is what the trip looks like. This is like the ballpark cost. If this at all sounds interesting to you guys, go home, talk to the family, figure out is this something that's financially possible for us? Is this something you're interested in? And then the next meeting, I kind of get more into the nitty-gritty of like, hey, you know, it can be cold there, it can be dusty there. Like these are the different things that we're going to have to deal with. This is what maybe a rough itinerary sort of looks like. And then we get that better level of commitment. And then we kind of move from there. And so I would say last year, I think we probably had a total of like 3 meetings. That group was like um, pretty happy to just kind of do their own thing, which was fine. But I've had, 4 or 5 meetings in previous years. I'm happy to do Zoom calls like whenever. Getting out to Columbia is a little bit tricky for me. I think I told you, Mason, I own a practice. I bought a practice in April. So between that and having a baby, getting out of the city is a little bit tough. So, but Zoom calls are no issue for me whatsoever.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Cool. And Allison's, thank you for the travel agent help. Like this lady last time was fine, but I think it was like $60 a person for her to book the flights, which seemed a little bit silly, especially when the flights were already so expensive. So I'm looking at that from like a price standpoint as well as a competency standpoint. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on about conservation for a little bit here. I am looking forward to it. Like the trip is just so special. Um, this is like a volunteer position for me, right? Like they don't pay me anything for this. But it's just worth it for me to go back year after year because you just always see something cool, and it's just such a, I don't know, you just really feel like you're out in the wild, and it is just you can't do stuff like that here. So it's way cool. I hope you guys are interested. I hope you come. But talk to your family, figure out what it is that you guys want to do, and I'll be looking forward to chatting with you guys come the new year, and we'll hopefully get a good group together.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
I
of
will
course.
make sure to set up the second meeting when we come back from break with you. All right.
Super. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you,
Cool. Thank you so
everybody, for
much.
coming.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
this was recorded, so if anybody was asked that, I will send that out in the email that I sent the Zoom in. And have a great day.
Good luck, everybody. Bye.